So I want to do a video, and I want to talk about something that's come up a few times in the last couple weeks. I'm just flavoring my drink with my stim-free pre-workout. So there's always the question that comes about on who's the greatest ever, and I made a mistake because I think I owe someone an apology. And I think that person I owe an apology to is Arnold, because I constantly stated that Ronnie Coleman was the greatest bodybuilder ever. And when I said that, I was thinking of, the physique as far as pushing limitations. And unfortunately, we've seen what some of those, pushing the envelope, routines that he performed, unfortunately took a toll on his body, right? So, in question, what makes someone the greatest bodybuilder ever? There's a lot of variables to it. I think a lot of people have different opinions, and when I would constantly sit there and say Ronnie Coleman, arguably the greatest of all time, I try to put that in there, but a lot of times I say the greatest of all time, which is Ronnie. I was kind of looking at myself, challenging him through all the years, and kind of, I think, more looking at tooting my own horn, like I beat, a guy that would consider the greatest ever. Like I always said, not at his prime. Okay, so don't mistake that I'm sitting here saying, hey, I was a better bodybuilder beating the greatest guy. I think he was coming closer to the end of his career when I actually did beat him. He was over 40, so it's really hard to get better at that age, and I can talk a little bit about that. But I think realistically, when I talked about the greatest bodybuilder ever, people have their opinions on, okay, is it just on the stage or is it off the stage, and how they present themselves and what they give back to the business. And we've gone through many, many Mr. Olympias. I mean, starting with Schwarzenegger, we talk about the standout guys, right? The guys that won multiple titles, or the guys that were publicized the most. You had Arnold and Sergio, and then you had, you talk about Dorian Yates, you talk about Lee Haney. Lee Haney was an 8-time winner. He was the first guy to break Arnold's record. And then Ronnie came up and tied Lee Haney's record, going for number 9 when I actually won the first Mr. Olympia of my career, 2006. And then you had someone, Phil Heath, take over after me, 4 titles, Dexter Jackson in between, and all of a sudden now Phil wins 7, going for number 8, and he loses to Sean Roden. And now we've witnessed the next Mr. Olympia, the 15 now, Brandon Curry win. So does he start a trend now? But I think, people visualize a lot of what Mr. Olympia does. And if you really look at the big picture, Arnold really propelled bodybuilding and put it on the map. And he did that not only stepping on the bodybuilding stages, but something that a lot of us aspire to do at certain times. And Dave, behind the camera, you witnessed this, when we were going for the Hercules film, which eventually The Rock ended up shooting that script, right? And doing the Hercules film, which was filmed in Hungary, 2009. I had a vision of, I really wanted to branch out into movies too, and I had just won the title back. But Arnold went and did all this beyond bodybuilding, I think, because, there was that opportunity. And now you have a lot of animation. So a lot of those physiques that you see are animated now on the big screen. And we talked about that even in 2009, where we talked about the role of having the big physique, but sometimes being big, in bodybuilding terms, is way too big for the camera. And as you know, Arnold downsized a lot. We were talking this morning about how we thought Sylvester Stallone was so jacked in First Blood.
Yeah.
And now we look and we say, man, he wasn't that big, and he was 154 pounds in Rocky 4.
Wow. Oh, was he only?
Yeah,
wow.
154.
Jeez.
So, and I was, remember, guys I idolized were Van Damme and Stallone. So I was looking at movie people. I wasn't even like a Schwarzenegger, I saw Commando, and Commando, he looked crazy big, and, I'd be shocked if he was over 230 pounds for that movie.
Yeah.
He was just very, chiseled or whatever. Twins, remember how he looked in Twins? I think he was well into, I think it's 40 by then. So, he started his movie career and he really gave bodybuilding an eye that we never had before. And, he said it was a plan. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. We all have kind of plans, and those plans get altered. I never planned on being the greatest bodybuilder in the world at a certain point. And I just wanted to be great at something. I just wasn't sure what it was. Ended up being bodybuilding. And, I always stated that Ronnie was the greatest, but I have a second opinion on that now. I mean, looking at kind of what's transpired and what the role of being a Mr. Olympia champion bodybuilder was. And I'm trying to do greater things off the stage. So if I left everything that I did on the bodybuilding stage, man, that's not, to me, there's so much more worth to it, right? And Schwarzenegger was able to leave not only the record, but he was able to go into the movies.
And politics.
Yeah, and politics. But, that's crazy, because that's like, you look at that's like breaking up lives, right? The guy goes from a bodybuilder to a Hollywood actor to a politician.
And governor, yeah.
That's
like
three different lives.
3 lives.
So in retrospect now, being in the mid 40s, I'm looking at that as man, I'm trying to make my mark after bodybuilding, not just all my accolades I did on the stage. You can talk about that, but you want to be known. What's your legacy, right? They talk about legacy.
Yeah.
What are you known for after? And unfortunately, a lot of bodybuilders leave it on the stage and then they moved into nothing else. I mean, I'm thriving to create a lot of business for myself, but also to give back to a lot of people, promoting the shows and all this stuff. But I'm kind of in a trend, like a lot of guys do, where Schwarzenegger just kind of rewrote the whole, he rewrote everything.
He loves his life, Did you see him on Howard Stern recently?
No.
He was on Howard Stern and he said, "I'm not afraid about death, but I'm pissed off about it." He says, "I don't want to give up this life. I know after a certain point, I'm gonna have to die. It's inevitable, and I don't want to live this life. We may come back. Who knows if we're coming back, if we're not? But no matter what, you're not gonna come back as who you were with the same life." And he loves his life so much, he doesn't want to let it go. It was kind of cool that he enjoys his life, being who he is so much, today still.
Yeah, but if you remember, I used to go to the Arnold's, man, and what was so exciting about the Arnold's when Arnold was movie guy? He had left the bodybuilding stage and he still was kind of jacked.
Yeah.
And every year he would preview the movie.
Oh, that was coming out.
So you'd get a sneak peek. So you weren't only going to the Arnold to see okay, this is the lineup, but there was so much more attraction to the Arnold, which now, number one, the Arnold shifted to continents, right? So I think it's totally watered. If you said to me, was the Arnold title more valuable back when you were winning it or now? It was definitely then, just like the Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
There's only one Mr. Olympia. I read an article by Peter McGough, and he says the Olympia should be one show. He's absolutely right. I agree. Mm-hmm. Should be one show. There should be one Mr. Olympia. It's kind of like the men's physique Olympia, 212.
Yeah.
There's one Mr. Olympia. I hate when they say, oh, well, he's the Mr. Olympia 212 or he's the Mr. Olympia men's physique. They should have came up with a different title for it, I think, because it gets very confusing because, you're signing things and it's Mr. Olympia, this and that, and it kind of devalues when you have so many. It's just like when they separated the shorter Mr. Olympia to the taller, right? Didn't they separate it back in Arnold and Franco's era or whatever?
And then there was an overall after that.
Yeah, so I think it's tougher, although trying to accommodate, and I appreciate, those guys that are obviously shorter in height or whatever, lighter in body weight. I just think, sometimes it gets a little confusing, but that's what I used to love about the Schwarzenegger show, was going to preview, and I saw when he was in the Batman movie.
Oh yeah.
When he played Iceman or whatever.
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze, he played Mr. Freeze or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and then he would do he did True Lies. He showcased that.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
I mean, you think of so many movies, but if you remember Arnold, one year he went skiing and he broke his leg or something and had to stop filming, and I just think about that and I'm like, man, that guy lived his life to. I visited his house. I visited where he grew up in Austria and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was really, really cool. But there was just a lot more excitement to me back then. But now, I'm looking from the outside in now, and this is different Jay Cutler from 5 years ago. And they say every 5 years you transition into new things. And I think we were just talking about this. Man, I just want peace now. 5 years ago, I was going out still, and I enjoyed nightlife a little bit and having a good time. And now I've just been super focused on the company, and I still love to have fun, but like you said, you love your life. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. People say, how are your days? I said, they're so jam-packed, but I wouldn't have any other way. I mean, you call me on a Monday, and I'm like, dude, I'm just leaving the office at 10 o'clock at night.
That's true.
But I'm trying to manage my time a little better now. But my appreciation goes out to Arnold, because he really did do a lot of great things. And I've had the opportunity to converse with him many times. And, a lot can be learned from that. But he had a vision of like, okay, I'm going to use stepping stones to get to bigger and better things. And I don't think the movie thing was ever like, oh, this is going to be the end for me, right? Some people just do movies until they're 80 or they pass away, right?
Yeah.
Where Schwarzenegger was like, okay, I'm going to transition out of this and go into politics.
What do you think is his ultimate goal in life?
Dude,
What would you say?
I think he loves training.
No, I know, but because I think he would love, as topping the whole thing, to become president.
Well, I do, but he can't because he's not
I,
a citizen.
well, I know, but that
not.
could be changed in the future. You never know. But I think that would be his ultimate goal if you could ask him. I'm pretty sure. That's what he would want. And
Yeah,
then
I
he
never
would
really
say,
thought about it because I thought it was kind of a, I don't know if they would change the rule for it or whatever,
yeah. But I think if you could do that, then you could say, okay.
But it's just kind of crazy, Dave, that, like, with Arnold, of course Andy's FaceTiming me. With Arnold, he had so much security. Do you remember how much security he used to have?
I know.
I remember backstage when I was competing in shows, all the Secret Service would be back there. But
Well,
now,
when he was governor, yeah.
it's just so chill now. Like,
Yeah.
he travels around with, like, walks freely.
And not only that, I mean, he has his buddies with him at the
Yeah.
Arnold, with these training partners and stuff. But even at goals, he comes early in the morning. He's there almost every morning at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And he takes pictures with everyone. He doesn't mind. He's in a good mood. He's kind of like, he's different than he was before. He's way chill.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's loving life and being happy who he is.
But, like, look, he's still, I mean, we've known he's had the knee done or the hip or whatever, right?
Yeah.
He's had some injuries, but,
Shoulders,
like,
yeah.
just goes to show, like, man, like, the length of time you can still continue to train. He's still training, not to that intensity, but I hope I'm like that, I really do. Like, that's my goal is, our gym time is the most important time for us because that's what our passion is.
Therapy.
But he really, like, propelled himself to next level and put himself in the right position,
Yeah.
which I appreciate a lot. And, I always say to you, like, respect to the guys that live in California that can deal with the traffic and the taxes and everything out there, man. It's like I had to migrate to Vegas just because I wanted to prosper a little more. And I do travel extensively now. But I definitely want to leave a mark, like, continually like that. Arnold's, how old is he? He's probably 30, almost 30 years older than I am.
Yeah, he's in, is he
Like
70 yet?
72 or 3 or
Yeah,
something.
he's right behind Stallone.
So, shout out to Arnold, man. Shout out to Arnold. I showed a little disrespect for what, for constantly saying, Ronnie's the great, there's certain opinions on that. And I know people, I'd like to hear your comments below, who you think is the greatest bodybuilder. And, Lee Haney is an awesome man, too. Like, he did a lot of great things, even after bodybuilding, and continues to.
Camps and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I just, he did a lot for the community, and he's got his training certification, all that stuff. So I appreciate him a lot, just like I do Dorian Yates. Like, he left a legacy on bodybuilding that, I mean, people still follow his training. We just talked about the other day with our time under tension. You always talk, oh, Dorian this.
Yeah.
So you leave your mark, like, in that bodybuilding stuff. But let's be real, like, stepping out of the bodybuilding arena and becoming more known for your abilities, it's pretty awesome, So, that Arnold definitely, I think, would have to be in my book now, the greatest bodybuilder ever. So shout out to Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe below and let me hear your comments. I want to hear your comments and I want to hear your arguments. Some people may agree or disagree with me, but let's make it a discussion because I always appreciate the discussion, whether it's good or bad.
Awesome.
So stay tuned.